The vacuum of space held secrets that most civilizations preferred to leave undisturbed, and the Vrathka were the reason why. These apex predators had ruled the dark regions between stars for millennia, their reputation carved into the collective memory of every spacefaring species that had ever encountered them and survived to tell the tale. The Vrathka stood 3 meters tall when fully extended, their bodies covered in adaptive scales that could match any environment perfectly, rendering them nearly invisible until they chose to strike. Their 6 limbs ended in retractable claws, sharp enough to pierce military-grade hull plating, and their double rows of crystalline teeth could crush bone and metal with equal ease. No species had ever conquered Vrathka space, no military force had ever intimidated them, and no diplomatic envoy had ever successfully negotiated with them. They were solitary hunters, patient and intelligent, who viewed every other living thing as either prey or irrelevant. Kestar was a respected hunter among his kind, having survived 2 centuries of stalking prey across dozens of star systems. He had claimed a small region of unexplored space as his hunting ground, a cluster of 7 star systems, rich with asteroid fields and uncharted planets. When the sensors in his ship detected an unknown vessel entering his territory, Kestar felt the familiar surge of anticipation that came before every hunt. The vessel was small by galactic standards, perhaps designed for a crew of 20 at most. Its hull bore markings Kestar had never seen before, symbols that seemed almost primitive in their simplicity. The ship moved slowly through the asteroid field, scanning and cataloging everything it encountered. Kestar studied the vessel from a distance, his ship's camouflage rendering him undetectable. The prey seemed oblivious to his presence, which was typical. Never knew a Vrathka was near until the attack had already begun. He tracked the vessel for 3 solar cycles, learning its patterns and identifying its weaknesses. The ship's shields were adequate, but not exceptional, and its weapon systems appeared designed for defense rather than offense. These beings, whoever they were, clearly did not expect serious trouble. On the 4th cycle, something unusual happened. The vessel stopped moving entirely, settling into a stable orbit around a small ice moon. Kestar expected the crew to disembark, to explore the surface and make themselves vulnerable. Instead, the ship simply waited. Hours passed, then a full day. Kestar circled the vessel cautiously, wondering if perhaps they had detected him somehow. But their scanning equipment showed no sign of active searching. They were simply sitting still, as if waiting for something. Inside the human exploration vessel Pathfinder, Sarah Chen studied the data her team had collected over the past 4 days. "It's still following us," Lieutenant Marcus Rodriguez reported from the sensor station. "Same trajectory?" Sarah asked. "Identical pattern," Marcus confirmed. "Maintains exactly 40,000 kilometers distance, adjusts position whenever we change course." Sarah nodded slowly. She had suspected they were being tracked since the 2nd day in this system. The sensor ghosts that appeared and disappeared, the slight energy fluctuations that didn't match any natural phenomenon, the way small asteroids occasionally shifted as if something large had brushed past them. "What do we know about this region?" she asked. Ensign Yuki Tanaka pulled up the galactic database. "Officially designated as unexplored territory," Yuki said, "but there are old warnings in the archives, references to disappearances and lost survey teams." "Vratka space," Marcus said, quietly. The word sent a chill through the bridge. Every species in the known galaxy had heard stories about the Vrathka. Perfect predators, unstoppable hunters, the apex species that even the most advanced military civilizations avoided. "We can't outrun them," Sarah said matter-of-factly. "And we certainly can't fight them." "So what do we do?" Yuki asked. Sarah considered their options carefully. Running would trigger chase instincts, fighting would be suicide, and doing nothing would eventually lead to an attack once their observer grew bored or hungry. "We do something they won't expect," Sarah decided. "Marcus, compose a simple message on all frequencies." What should it say? Sarah smiled slightly. Tell them we know they're there, and ask if they'd like to talk. Marcus stared at her. You want to invite a Vrathka to chat? They're intelligent, not mindless, Sarah replied. Species communicates somehow, and communication is better than violence. The message was sent, broadcast across every frequency the Pathfinder systems could generate. Kestar received it instantly, and for the first time in his long life, the hunter felt genuine confusion. They knew he was there. How could they possibly know? His camouflage was perfect, his approach had been flawless, and his ship's stealth systems had never failed before. Yet somehow, these unknown beings had detected him. More than that, they weren't fleeing. They had stopped, made themselves vulnerable, and sent an invitation. Kestar had hunted hundreds of species across the galaxy. All of them had the same basic responses when they sensed danger: fight or flight. These beings were doing neither, offering communication. The hunter in Kestar said this was a trick, a desperate gambit by prey that knew it was cornered. But the intelligent being within him recognized something unprecedented. These creatures had deduced his presence through observation and logic, then responded with curiosity rather than fear. Kestar did not reply to the message. Instead, he continued watching, now more intrigued than hungry. Perhaps these beings would reveal their nature through their actions. Perhaps they would prove interesting enough to justify delaying their inevitable end. On the bridge of the Pathfinder, Sarah waited patiently for a response that she suspected would not come immediately. What now? Marcus asked. Now we show whoever's out there that we're not a threat, Sarah said. Continue our survey work, maintain our routine, and make it clear we're scientists, not soldiers. And if they attack? Sarah looked at the view screen, at the empty space where she knew something deadly was watching. But I don't think they will. Not yet. Why not? Because, Sarah explained, we've already done something no other species has probably ever done. What's that? We acknowledged them without fear, Sarah said. We saw them when they thought they were invisible, and we responded with an invitation instead of panic. You think that matters to a predator? Sarah nodded. To a mindless predator, no. But to an intelligent one, absolutely. We've surprised them, and curiosity is a powerful thing. In the darkness between the stars, Kestar watched the small vessel resume its activities. The crew emerged in protective suits to explore the ice moon, working together with practiced efficiency. They collected samples, took readings, and communicated with each other in patterns that suggested cooperation and shared purpose. And strangest of all, one of them, the one who had sent the message, occasionally looked up at the stars. Not searching, not scanning, just looking. As if she knew exactly where Kestar was hiding. As if she was letting him know that she knew. The apex predator of the galaxy felt something unfamiliar. Not fear, never fear, but something close to respect. These beings were different. Kestar had stalked prey across 100 worlds, and every hunt followed predictable patterns. Prey ran when threatened, hid when cornered, and fought only when escape became impossible. These humans, as he had learned their species' name from their data transmissions, followed none of these patterns. They continued their scientific work on the ice moon with methodical precision, seemingly unconcerned that a Vrathka observed their every move. The hunter watched as they established a temporary camp on the surface, erected scanning equipment, and collected samples from deep ice cores. Their teamwork impressed him despite himself. Each member of the crew understood their role perfectly, moving together like a well-coordinated hunting pack. Dr. Sarah Chen appeared to be their leader, though Kestar noticed something unusual about her leadership style. She did not command through dominance or fear, but through something else entirely. Other humans looked to her for guidance willingly, trusting her judgment. On the 5th day of observation, Kestar noticed something that stopped him cold. Sarah had placed an object on the surface approximately 100 meters from their camp. The object was small, reflective, angled toward his hiding position. A mirror. She had left him a mirror. The next day, another object appeared. This one emitted sound waves, patterns of rhythm and melody that Kestar's translator identified as music. Human music, complex and emotional. The third day brought a heat lamp, positioned in the open and activated. These were not random objects. Sarah was leaving him gifts. The realization sent conflicting signals through Kestar's mind. Prey did not leave gifts for predators. Enemies did not offer presents to those who stalked them. Yet here was irrefutable evidence that Sarah knew he was watching, knew approximately where he positioned himself, and was actively trying to communicate through these offerings. Kestar decided to test these strange beings. He used his ship's gravitational systems to trigger a small avalanche on a slope near their camp. Not close enough to cause harm, but near enough to pose apparent danger. The humans responded instantly. Marcus coordinated an evacuation, while Yuki secured their equipment. Sarah stood her ground, analyzing the avalanche pattern with scientific detachment. But what caught Kestar's attention was what happened after the danger passed. The humans did not flee the area. Instead, they worked together to clear debris, helped each other check for injuries that hadn't occurred, and showed genuine concern for one another's well-being. Then Sarah did something that defied all predatory logic. She placed supplies near the avalanche site. Medical equipment, emergency rations, thermal, blankets, she left supplies for whoever might need them. Kestar studied the cache carefully. The supplies were real, not bait or trap. Sarah had concluded that someone else was in the area, possibly endangered by the avalanche, and had left resources to help them survive. The apex predator found himself experiencing an emotion he had not felt in decades: confusion. These humans somehow knew he existed, yet they showed no fear. They left him gifts without expecting anything in return. They offered help to an unknown presence that might be dangerous. Every instinct Kestar possessed told him this made no sense. Prey did not behave this way, yet Prey was exactly what these humans should be. He was Vrathka, the galaxy's perfect predator. They were small, soft creatures with no natural weapons and fragile bodies. By every measure, they should be terrified. Instead, they were curious. The camp that evening, her team resting inside the habitat module. She looked up at the stars, her eyes tracking to a specific point in space. Kestar's position. She could not possibly see him through this camouflage. Yet she looked directly at where he hid. Then she did something extraordinary. She waved, a simple gesture, hand raised in greeting, acknowledging his presence without hostility. Kestar felt something shift inside him. These beings were not prey. He did not know what they were, but they did not fit into any category his experience had prepared him for. The next morning, Kestar made a decision that would have shocked any other member of his species. He deactivated his camouflage. The shimmer in space resolved into his massive ship, angular and dark, bristling with weapons and armor. He expected panic, expected the humans to scramble for their vessel and flee. Instead, Sarah walked calmly to a position between the camp and Kestar's ship. She stood alone, unarmed, looking up at his vessel. Marcus's voice crackled over her communicator. "Sarah, what are you doing?" "Something necessary," she replied calmly. "Trust me." Kestar could have ended her life in a dozen different ways from this distance. His weapons could have vaporized the entire camp before the humans could react. Yet, he did neither of these things. Instead, he emerged from his ship. The airlock cycled open, and Kestar descended to the ice moon's surface. His 3-meter frame towered over the landscape, scales gleaming in the starlight. His claws extended reflexively, and his optical sensors focused on the small human standing before him. Sarah did not run. She did not scream or call for help. She simply stood her ground, meeting his gaze with calm, steady eyes. "Hello," she said, her voice transmitted through her suits. "Thank you for revealing yourself." Kestar tilted his head, studying this brave, foolish creature. She should be dead already. Every other species would have attacked or fled by now. Yet here she stood, greeting him as if they were equals. The hunter extended one massive claw slowly, deliberately non-threatening. He pointed at himself, then at her, then made a complex gesture that in Vrathka communication meant unexpected encounter. Sarah watched the gesture carefully, her analytical mind processing the movement. She raised her own hand, mimicked the gesture as best she could with human fingers. Kestar felt something remarkable. She was trying to communicate in his language, not through translators or technology, but through observation and imitation. He made another gesture, simpler this time, a greeting used between Vrathka who met peacefully. Sarah copied it, then added a human gesture. She extended her hand, palm open, in the human gesture of peace. Kestar studied the offered hand. In Vrathka culture, extending an unarmed appendage toward another was a sign of absolute trust. This human was doing the same thing, offering trust to a being that could kill her effortlessly. The apex predator reached out slowly. His claw, easily large enough to crush Sarah's entire body, touched her extended hand gently. The contact lasted only a moment, but in that moment, something unprecedented occurred. Hunter and human acknowledged each other not as predator and prey, but as intelligent beings. Marcus watched from the camp, his weapon drawn but not aimed. "Should I be ready to fire?" Yuki asked nervously. "No," Marcus said slowly. "I think Sarah just made first contact." On the ice moon's surface, under alien stars, Sarah smiled behind her helmet. "Would you like to learn about humans?" she asked. Kestar did not understand the words, but he understood the tone. Invitation, curiosity, openness. He gestured toward his ship, then toward the human camp. A question: where should they talk? Sarah pointed to neutral ground between both locations. Kestar rumbled, a sound that his species used to indicate agreement. The galaxy's apex predator and the curious human walked side by side to begin an impossible conversation. The meeting ground Sarah had chosen was a flat expanse of ice, roughly equidistant from both the human camp and Kestar's position. She had instructed Marcus to set up a portable heater and basic seating, though she suspected Kestar would not need either. The Vrathka arrived first, moving with a predator's grace despite his massive size. His scales had shifted to match the ice's coloration, a conscious adaptation that Sarah found fascinating. When Sarah approached with a datapad and portable holographic projector, Kestar settled onto the ice in a position that reminded her of a cat. His tail curved around his body, and his optical sensors tracked her every movement. "I brought pictures," Sarah said, activating the projector. She knew Kestar could not understand her words yet, but tone and gesture carried meaning across species barriers. The hologram displayed an image of Earth, rotating slowly in blue and green. Kestar leaned forward, his attention captured immediately. Sarah pointed to herself, then to the planet. "Human," she said clearly. "Earth." She pulled up more images: cities, forests, oceans, deserts. Kestar absorbed everything, his body language suggesting intense focus. Then, Sarah showed him something different: images of humans running. Not fleeing, but persistence hunting, humans tracking prey across vast distances, following footprints for hours or days, never giving up. She showed ancient humans chasing antelope across African plains until the animals collapsed from exhaustion. Kestar's optical sensors widened. He made a gesture that Sarah's growing understanding interpreted as surprise or disbelief. These small, slow creatures hunted by never stopping? Sarah nodded, understanding his question. She pulled up more data. Human endurance statistics, marathon runners, long distance swimmers. Then she showed him human social structures, families, communities, civilizations built on cooperation and shared knowledge. Images of humans helping each other, teaching their young, caring for their elderly. Kestar rumbled, a low-frequency sound that vibrated through the ice. He reached toward his own technology, a device Sarah had not noticed before. The Vrathka's hologram activated, showing a very different world. Dark, covered in dense forests, with bioluminescent plants, massive creatures moving alone through the shadows, each one a solitary hunter. Kestar pointed to himself, then to one of the creatures. Vrathka. He showed Sarah their hunting techniques. Perfect camouflage, patient stalking, decisive strikes. Every Vrathka hunted alone, trusted no one, needed no one. Sarah watched intently, beginning to understand the vast difference between their species. Cooperation. Vrathka survived through individual excellence. Where humans built communities, Vrathka walked alone. Kestar showed her more. Vrathka avoiding each other except for brief mating encounters, raising offspring to independence quickly, then returning to solitude. His gestures conveyed a concept Sarah found both alien and somehow sad. Connection was weakness in Vrathka culture. Depending on others made you vulnerable. Yet here he was, communicating with her. Sarah made a bold decision. She pulled up recordings from the past 6 days, footage of herself leaving gifts for Kestar, of the avalanche incident, of the supplies she had left. Kestar watched himself being observed, being predicted, being understood. Sarah pointed to her eyes, then to the empty space where Kestar's ship had hidden. She had seen him even when he was invisible. The Vrathka's scales rippled with color, indicated strong emotion. He made a complex series of gestures, clearly asking how she had detected him. Sarah smiled and pulled up sensor data, analysis charts, probability matrices. She showed him how she had noticed the pattern of small movements, the energy fluctuations, the way space seemed to bend slightly around his camouflage position. Then she showed him something more important, her reasoning process, how she had concluded that whatever was watching them was intelligent, how she had decided that intelligence deserved respect and communication, how she had chosen to reach out rather than flee or fight. Kestar sat motionless for a long moment. Then he did something unprecedented for a Vrathka. He made a gesture of respect, lowering his head slightly towards Sarah. In his species' language, this acknowledged that another being had demonstrated superior capability. Sarah had outhunted the hunter, should have been invisible. But she had not responded like a hunter. She had responded with curiosity and kindness. The Vrathka activated his communication device, running human language through analysis protocols. After several minutes, a synthesized voice emerged, rough and imperfect, but understandable. "Why no fear?" Kestar asked. The words were halting, clearly difficult for him to form. Sarah considered her answer carefully. "Fear makes you run," she said slowly, gesturing to reinforce her words. "Running means not understanding. We wanted to understand you." Kestar processed this. Every species he had encountered ran from Vrathka. The smart ones ran far and fast. The foolish ones ran too late. None had ever stood still and asked questions. "Humans are prey," Kestar stated, the translation giving his words a blunt quality. "Small, weak, fragile. Offended." Plus, "Yes," she agreed. "Humans are physically weak." She pulled up more images. Humans using tools, building structures, creating technology. "But humans are mentally strong," she continued. "We survive by understanding, by adapting, by working together. We are persistence predators who hunt knowledge." Kestar rumbled again, but this time Sarah recognized the sound. It was laughter. or the Vrathka equivalent. Hunt knowledge, he repeated. Strange prey. The best kind, Sarah replied with a smile. Over the next several hours, they continued their exchange. Kestar showed Sarah more of Vrathka culture, the ways his species had dominated their region of space through perfect individual capability. Sarah showed him human history, the ways her species had survived ice ages, predators, diseases, and disasters through community and innovation. With each exchange, Kestar's understanding grew. These humans were not prey in any traditional sense. They were something else entirely. They turned weakness into strength through intelligence. They survived impossible odds through cooperation. They faced the unknown with curiosity rather than fear. As the meeting drew to a close, Kestar made a gesture Sarah had not seen before. Her growing database of Vrathka body language suggested it meant something like fellow hunter or worthy equal. You are the first, Kestar said through his translator. First what? Sarah asked. First to see Vrathka and not run. First to offer friendship, not fight. First to be interesting. Sarah stood and extended her hand again. This time, Kestar knew what the gesture meant. He touched her hand with one claw tip, gentle despite his size. Will you continue to observe us? Sarah asked. Yes, Kestar replied, but not as prey. As what? The Vrathka's scales shifted through several colors as he considered. As something new, he finally said. As Sarah walked back to camp, Marcus met her halfway. Did you just make friends with the Vrathka? He asked incredulously. Sarah looked back at the massive predator returning to his ship. I think I did, she said softly. I think I really did. 3 days passed in peaceful coexistence. The Pathfinder crew continued their survey work while Kestar observed, no longer hiding, but maintaining a respectful distance. Sarah and the Vrathka met daily, exchanging information and slowly building a functional communication system. On the 4th day, everything changed. The new arrival did not announce itself with messages or warnings. A massive Vrathka ship simply materialized at the edge of the system, weapons hot and engines blazing. Kestar detected it immediately, his scales shifting to aggressive crimson patterns. He opened a channel to Sarah's communicator. Danger, his translated voice crackled. Another Vrathka, younger, more aggressive. His name is Jirok. Sarah felt her heart rate spike, but forced herself to remain calm. What does he want? She asked. You, Kestar replied, bluntly. Humans are unknown prey, easy targets. He comes for the hunt. N.P. Marcus had already initiated emergency protocols, bringing the Pathfinder's shields online and preparing evasive maneuvers. We can't outrun a Vrathka ship, Yuki reported, her voice tight with stress. Should we fight? No, Sarah said firmly. We'd lose, and violence will only confirm their view of us as prey. Then, what do we do? Marcus demanded. Sarah looked at Kestar's ship, an idea forming. We trust the friend we've made. Jirok's ship entered orbit around the ice moon with predatory precision. The young Vrathka was smaller than Kestar, but moved with aggressive confidence. His scales were dark amber, marked with patterns that Sarah's database suggested indicated numerous successful hunts. Jirok's voice boomed across all frequencies, speaking in Vrathka language that the Pathfinder systems struggled to translate. Unknown prey vessel, you have entered hunting grounds. Prepare to be claimed. Before Sarah could respond, Kestar's ship moved. The massive vessel positioned itself directly between Jirok and the Pathfinder. Kestar's voice, when it came, carried weight and authority. This prey is claimed, he announced in his own language. By ancient right, they are mine. Jirok's ship hesitated, clearly not expecting resistance. You would deny a fellow hunter? Jirok challenged. These creatures are nothing, barely worth the energy to eliminate. These creatures are not what they appear, Kesthar replied. I have observed them, communicated with them. They are not prey. Jirok's laughter echoed across the channel, harsh and dismissive. You have gone soft, old hunter, he said. Spending too much time alone has made you forget what we are. We are Vrathka, apex predators. All others are prey or irrelevant. Sarah made a decision. That Marcus would later call either brilliant or insane. She opened a direct channel to Jirok. I am Dr. Sarah Chen, representing humanity, she said, clearly. We request the right to speak before any action is taken. Jirok's ship powered weapons in response. Prey does not speak, it runs or dies. Then we are not prey, Sarah replied. We are something you have not encountered before. Kesthar rumbled his agreement. Listen to her, Jirok, he urged. What harm is there in listening? Jirok's ship circled aggressively, but the weapons did not fire. You have 1 solar minute, he finally said. Speak, tiny creature, before I claim you. Sarah activated every recording device, every holographic projector, every display screen on the Pathfinder. She broadcast human history directly to Jirok's ship. Images of early humans crossing ice bridges between continents, surviving when stronger species died. Footage of humans tracking prey for days, across deserts and mountains, never giving up. Records of humans exploring every environment on Earth, from deepest oceans to highest peaks. Then she showed him something more recent. Humans in space. Colonies on hostile worlds, stations in deadly environments, explorers pushing into the unknown. Every habitat was a testament to human persistence. Every achievement showed adaptation and innovation. We survived predators larger than you, Sarah said, her voice steady. We survived ice ages that killed most life on our planet. We survived diseases, disasters, and our own mistakes. We survived because we never give up, never stop learning, and never stop adapting. Jirok watched in silence. Sarah pulled up the final piece of evidence. Recordings of the past week. Kesthar stalking the Pathfinder. Sarah detecting him despite his camouflage. Communication, their meetings, their growing understanding. Sarah explained. We saw Vrathka when we should have been blind. We understood him when we should have been ignorant. We befriended him when we should have been enemies. This is what humans do. We turn the impossible into reality. Jirok's ship stopped circling. The young Vrathka emerged onto his ship's hull, his massive form silhouetted against the stars. Sarah did something that made Marcus grab for his weapon. She walked out onto the ice moon's surface, alone and unarmed. Kesthar moved to join her, positioning himself beside the human. The image was striking. A 3-meter apex predator, standing alongside a small, fragile human in protective gear, standing together by choice. Jirok stared at this impossible sight. Vrathka did not stand with other species. Vrathka did not protect prey. Yet here was Kesthar, a hunter he respected, clearly allied with these humans. You would fight me to protect them? Jirok asked, disbelief clear in his translated voice. I would, Kesthar confirmed. Not because they are weak, but because they are valuable. They see what others miss. They persist when others quit. They connect when others isolate. Sarah stepped forward, her small form somehow not diminished by the massive beings flanking her. We don't want to be your enemy, she said to Jirok. We want to understand you, learn from you, share knowledge with you. That is what humans do. We build bridges, not walls. Jirok's scales rippled through a dozen colors. He was experiencing something no Vrathka had felt in generations. Doubt. These creatures should be easy prey, yet they had detected Kesthar when they should have been blind. They had communicated when they should have been terrified. Ground when they should have fled. Most disturbing of all, they had somehow convinced Kesthar, a veteran hunter, to protect them. Not through force or deception, but through something Jirak did not fully understand. "What are you?" Jirak asked quietly. Sarah smiled behind her helmet. "We are human," she said simply, "and we would like to be your friends." Jirak remained silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, he powered down his weapons. "I will not hunt you today," he said, "but I will watch. The galaxy must know about your species." His ship began to withdraw, but before leaving orbit, Jirak sent one final transmission. It was broadcast across Vrathka communication networks, reaching hundreds of solitary hunters across multiple star systems. "There is a species in Sector 447, the message read. "Small, fragile, seemingly helpless. Do not be deceived. They are not prey. Are something else, something unprecedented. Approach with caution. Approach with respect." As Jirak's ship vanished into faster-than-light travel, Sarah let out a breath she had not realized she was holding. Kestar rumbled softly beside her. "You have changed everything," he said. "How so?" Sarah asked. "No species has ever made Vrathka reconsider," Kestar explained. "You have done more than survive. You have made us uncertain, and uncertainty is more powerful than any weapon." The message Jirak broadcast rippled across the galaxy like a stone thrown into still water. Within days, every major civilization had intercepted and analyzed the Vrathka communication. The response was universal: shock, confusion, and intense curiosity. The Galactic Council, a loose coalition of spacefaring species that maintained communication and trade networks, called an emergency session. They had monitored humanity's expansion into space with mild interest, noting the species as technologically competent but physically unremarkable. Now the Vrathka, the species that had never shown interest in any other civilization, had issued a warning about humans. Not a threat, not a declaration of war, but a warning to approach with caution and respect. The council chamber on the neutral station of Concordia filled with representatives from dozens of species. The Thurok, massive crystalline beings who communicated through light patterns, pulsed with curiosity. The Zelthi, small amphibious creatures known for their diplomatic skills, chittered among themselves. The Kolvar, a warrior species that prided itself on military might, stood in rigid attention. All waited for answers. Sarah Chen had been invited to address the council, along with an unexpected companion. Kestar had chosen to leave his solitary territory and accompany her. His presence in the council chamber sent waves of alarm through the assembled representatives. Vrathka did not attend diplomatic functions. Vrathka did not participate in galactic politics. Vrathka certainly did not travel with members of other species, yet here stood Kestar, his massive form barely fitting through the chamber's entrance, scales shifting to neutral gray as he settled beside the human delegation. The council speaker, a Zelthi named Plixtar, opened the session with traditional greetings. "Circumstances," Plixtar announced. "The Vrathka have broken their silence to warn us about humanity. We seek understanding of what transpired in Sector 447. Sarah stepped forward, her small frame dwarfed by the alien representatives surrounding her. "Thank you for this opportunity," she began. "I will be direct. Humans are not superior to other species in strength, speed, or natural weapons. We are not more technologically advanced than many of you. What we are is persistent, adaptive, and deeply social." She activated holographic displays showing Earth's history. The assembled aliens watched as primitive humans spread across continents, surviving conditions that killed larger, stronger species. "We are persistence hunters," Sarah explained. "When we hunt, we do not give up. When we face obstacles, we find ways around them. When we encounter the unknown, we seek to understand it." Representative General Thrakmar interrupted. "Many species are persistent," he growled. "Why do the Vrathka consider you special?" Kestar rose to his full height, his voice rumbling through the translator. "Because they see us," he said. The chamber fell silent. I stalked their vessel with perfect camouflage, Kestar continued. No species has ever detected me when I choose to hide. Yet the humans found me through observation and logic. They noticed patterns, analyzed data, and concluded my presence. Then they did something unprecedented. They invited me to communicate. The Thurok representative pulsed bright yellow, indicating extreme interest. You accepted communication with prey? The translation asked. They are not prey, Kestar stated firmly. Prey runs or fights. These humans did neither. They reached out with curiosity and respect. They offered gifts without expecting anything in return. They demonstrated their nature through patience and understanding. Sarah continued the explanation. When we encountered Kestar, we had three options: flee, fight, or communicate. Fleeing would have triggered chase instincts. Fighting would have been suicide. So we chose to learn, to understand, to connect. She pulled up recordings of their first meetings, the exchange of information, the gradual building of trust. The council representatives watched in fascination as Human and Vrathka learned each other's communication methods. We showed Kestar who we are, Sarah said. We showed him that humans survived through intelligence and cooperation, that we turn our perceived weaknesses into strengths, that we never stop adapting. A small voice spoke from the Selfie delegation. But why would a Vrathka care about any of this? Colors that Sarah had learned indicated deep thought. Because I recognized something in them, he said. Something I had never seen in prey or rivals. They are hunters of a different kind. Not hunters of flesh, but hunters of knowledge. They pursue understanding with the same intensity my species pursues prey. They never give up.